While in 0.2 a lot of the infinite damage loops have been removed, there are still at least two that I know of that remain. The first is that Flame Wall can still generate energy for Cast on Ignite when it's linked with Cast on Ignite, and we're seeing that with a lot of the Cast on Ignite infinite loops this patch. The other source is from Choir of the Storms. Even though this is a triggered skill, you're still able to generate energy for your Cast on Critical Strike setups with Choir of the Storm. That's what this build uses. It also uses Scepter and then uses 3 different Cast on Crit Spirit Gems, each linked with 2 skill gems inside for a total of 6 CoCs. Now, in order to sustain such incredibly high costs of triggering so many skills per second, I run a Blood Mage here, also using Master of Sanguimancy for access to Blood Mage. Originally, I had done some pathing down to the left side and gone for Fire to Lightning conversion with reduced duration Firestorm and Immerse Fuselid, but that's something else altogether. This isn't really a new setup necessarily, it's also a fairly popular setup that's been going around this league, especially in China where they're dropping Mask entirely and then going for a left side centric tree, running Veil of the Night, 0 resistances, Calm's Heart, and then just playing that sort of thing. The alternative there is obviously Moria Invictus, so you can still have at least one CoC setup, but all that said, Blood Mage as a caster is actually fairly meta in some circles right now. Now obviously this build doesn't perform the same way Lightning Spear does, but the big upside of playing this build is that you're not playing Lightning Spear, and that's, you know, kind of good enough. I'll get into some of the details of this build, but it's actually a fairly simple setup that I think anyone can really go for. And honestly, it's been a ton of fun to have these constant sparks and arcs going around, sort of emulating a half auto bomber playstyle where most of the time in a map, you're just walking. So if we head over to the MOBA link, I have my build set up here. It's kind of with the gear exactly as is. And there are essentially only 2 core uniques. Maybe 1. It kind of depends on the skill cost you're going for. So Master Sanguimancer is really nice because it gives you free blood magic, and the other one I'm using is Edziri's Acuity. So this isn't necessarily mandatory. It kind of depends. You could play Inspiration, Anoint Voracious, which is 20% instant leech, and go for that route. I assume that if you play without a Scepter, play with a Focus instead, you probably also don't need Acuity because your cost should go down. But especially if you go high art cost or high spark cost and then run a bunch of triggers, that is, you know, how it is. Everything else in here is kind of optional. I do run a From Nothing with Eldritch Battery, which I'll go over in a sec. The rest of the gear, plus levels, lightning damage, crit, that sort of thing. I do run Seed of Cataclysm. I think this is a crazy good value ring for casters. That 10% increased mana cost of skills doesn't even apply when you're playing blood magic, so that's pretty cool, I guess. Doesn't make a huge difference for me, but it is just an added benefit, and then I think it's generally better than your other rings. There's other offensive rings to go for. Levinstone is not bad. I've seen that emerge a few times, and then there's also the Sekima ring, which lets you play with an extra jewel. I think that's actually crazy valuable. It's probably what I would go for, because it's also basically plus 60 all res, plus 20 all attributes, and then, you know, plus a jewel, which is pretty cool. Down here, so these are the triple CoC setup. Let's talk about that first. So I'm running 3 different CoCs, and obviously with support gems it can get quite difficult. The first one is a double spark setup with the ideal spark gems for like clear. So persistence, accelerate. I'm also playing execute here. This can be a bunch of different things, but execute is on average like a I think 17% more damage multiplier, something like that. So it's not too bad. The second CoC setup is a hybrid arc spark setup. This one is with impetus, LE focus, energy retention. It's sort of the one that I want to trigger the most often. It helps out with a lot of consistency, and because it triggers so often, I still want Spark to be here, because actually Spark is more important for the loop. This is actually, I couldn't find it, but this is for Choir of the Storm, and you want to have that kind of consistent and persistent damage source for Choir. And the last setup that I'm playing is a double arc setup. This is sort of like the high damage single target setup. I'm running Blindside, and I'm running Fluke, and I'm running Super Critical with Blindside, because I am overcapped with Blindside, but then when I put in Super Critical, it helps out quite a bit, because it doesn't waste that as much. Now these can all be mixed and matched. There's a few other supports you could go for. I think things like Zenith don't work, but yeah, it can just be moved around however you see fit. And then my main skill, or at least the casting skill, is Spark with Rising Tempest, Arcane Tempo, and Lightning Mastery, and Unleash. So I would always probably use Unleash and Arcane Tempo no matter what. You can also play Mobility, you can play whatever the opposite of Mobility is, but this is the thing that starts your loop. But on single target, it's actually really big to keep on casting, because this can also trigger your cast on crit setups. So then you're not just triggering from Lightning Bolt. It probably just like doubles or maybe even triples your damage to be self-casting at the same time, but yeah, that's a note. Orbital Storms. So I would go over footage here, but I don't really understand Arc's damage, to be honest. I don't know if it's just like I'm calculating damage wrong in this instance, but I feel like Arc might be doing more damage than it is intended, just with the new change to the skill and how it has a pulse at the end. It might just be that it does that much damage, and I'm like just doing the math wrong like 4 or 5 times now, but there's something weird about it. But it also might have to do with Orb of Storms, and Well, basically, I cast Orbital Storm single target. I don't really know, to be honest. I've been kind of lazy in terms of like actually rigorously testing, and every time I go to test, I just get more and more frustrated thinking about why there isn't a target dummy in this game. It's so fucking stupid. Like, listen, if you don't test things before something comes out, and then you release skill gems that are like inaccurate as far as their tooltips go, that don't actually reflect how much their damage does, and then we don't even know how things interact, then you need players to test things. Why would you make players fucking constantly run Breachstones over and over again just to see if something works the way you think it does? And especially with this build, it's even more frustrating because if I reduce damage to hit something less, that changes like my energy threshold gain, which changes my overall DPS. So it's all multiplicative with each other. So it's like super, super, super frustrating. But if I had a target dummy, I could test so many more things. So like, I guess side rant, recently I've been playing Firestorm. Firestorm doesn't work the way that you think it does. Okay, Firestorm actually should never skill increase duration, because those improved bolts that drop when you consume ignite, those will, I mean, within reason, always appear as part of the bolts. So let's say you consume one ignite for 5 bolts, right? And that Firestorm's over 10 seconds, you'll see those 5 bolts appear over 10 seconds. But if your Firestorm's total duration is 1 second, and you consume 5 bolts as well with that one ignite, then 5 bolts will drop instantly, pretty much. And then you can just cast another Firestorm with 5 improved bolts, bam, bam, bam. And then Persistence is one of the recommended gems for Firestorm, which makes no sense. You have this gem that basically just reduces your damage, just the front line of recommended gems. It's actually insane. Like, things like that are so obscure. I feel like, how would you even figure these things out? Like, you'd be doing the things that you think are exactly opposite to what you think you should be doing. But all that said, been really frustrating to test. I just got really lazy. I don't really know what's going on with Arc right now, but it's a very, very strong single target skill. And I'll try to do a fresh run with Sork soon. Some of the offhand. I use 2 gems in offhand. One is Soul Offering, one is Convalescence. If you set your weapon swap 2 to have all your triggers disabled, but Convalescence on, you can actually weapon swap Convalescence, which is really cool. It's basically a free start of ES buff. So ES obviously has trouble doing recovery. I mean, I do play Eternal Youth here. So Convalescence in this case actually restores my life. And then you might think, well, that's kind of useless. You have like instant leech and whatever. Sometimes you kind of run out of life. In those scenarios, like just press Convalescence and it'll kind of start regenerating your life pool to the point at which you can cast 1 spark, and that helps out a lot. The other offhand thing I do is Soul Offering, and you can like take more of a weapon swap tree to emphasize Soul Offering, but it's just free damage that you can have. Really, really solid to have. I would, you know, just use it. Nothing else is that important. I honestly wish I'd had a different scepter, but I optimized my scepter just for how much spirit I could get and a little bit of attributes. Malice is not ideal because I'm kind of crapped on crit at all times based on how I balance my tree. And I would never play undercap because you won't have that clear consistency, so you don't want to do that. Talk about the skill tree itself. These nodes look to be hanging. This is because I'm running this from nothing with Eldritch Battery. A lot of people just path through here when they do lightning skills. I chose not to. I don't really like all this pathing. I feel like when I counted it up, it seemed to be relatively worth just pressing the 1 jewel. A 25 crit chance and then 3 points here for the extra chain. This helps out your spark clear, helps your consistency, that sort of thing. Might not be that mandatory for single target. In terms of weapon swap stuff, the offering effect here. I mean, really, I should be doing this a lot more. The other thing I noticed when I was looking at the, like mostly, I guess, like Chinese creator builds, but I guess it's probably in more places in general. Basically, they use 24 weapon set passives every single time. And what they tend to do is you grab like 24 points for crit or for offerings and curses. And then you kind of use your other points, like your main hand, just like, you know, say like damage nodes like these, they're tipped, or damage nodes like these, right? But they really, really leverage that. And what you end up with is like 50% effect elemental curses, which is super strong. Not for this build, playing Choir. The tree's fairly straightforward though, right side centric, just grabbing a lot of crit chance, some damage, a lot of energy gain stuff, because this helps out, especially while clearing. On bosses, it depends on how much HP they have and how much their element threshold is, but you tend to have a pretty consistent loop of damage going on. And then obviously I'm taking the classic spark stuff for increased product speed and increased skill effect duration. So yeah, it's pretty much the build. You walk up, cast spark, you acquire triggers for lightning bolt, then one comes down, and then that's it. I'll also link the POB in the video, you can check that out. But I'm really excited right now to set the next build. It's probably what I'm more excited about. It's gonna be a Frostbolt Chrono. It's something I've been thinking about for quite a while now. At least while I was out a couple nights ago. I wanted to play it. So yeah.